The Zoldyck family and the Phantom Troupe represent two sides of the same narrative coin. Both have the flexibility to appear and disappear from the main story at a moment's notice. Both are comprised of dynamic characters that compete against each other as much as they work together. From a storytelling perspective, they have the utmost freedom to do as they please. Yet interpersonally, their methods are total opposites. Both see the survival and prosperity of their respective factions as the utmost priority. But where Krollo's death would not mean the end of the spiders and their ideals, the Zoldicks would crumble at the death of their tradition. The members of the Phantom Troupe are equals with their own unique desires and lines of thinking. But in the Zoldyck family, a child's importance stems not from their own merits, but from how they can best fill the role they're assigned. Through Silva currently, Zeno before him, and with Killua groomed to be the successor, a single man runs the household, while the others stand below him in the hierarchy. A chosen son is given purpose as the next family heir. But for the rest, they must live a life centered around that sibling. This molds Illumi into an overprotective abuser, Miluki into a bitter shut-in. And then there's Kalluto. Much of their story has yet to unfold, but that doesn't make the material they've been given thus far any less noteworthy. And I know what you're probably thinking, Mathwiz, Kalluto has had maybe 30 manga pages of screen time combined up through the election arc. What could you possibly have to analyze? And to that I say, fuck you, let me hyperfixate on minor characters. Between the chart and their sporadic appearances, I think it's interesting that Kalluto is framed as an outsider even within their own family, with their only noteworthy connections being a yet undefined jealousy towards Alluka and love for their mother. Kalluto has no dialogue during the story arc focused on the Zoldicks, and no one else has anything to say about Kalluto. This was true for Alluka as well, but for different reasons. She's seen as a threat, and as such, she's confined and controlled. Even if it's as a black sheep, she stands out on her own. Alluka matters, and given her place as Killua's other younger sibling, that's a big deal. Since Killua is the chosen son, Alluka and Kalluto are conditioned to be no more than the ones born after the favorite, and that casts a huge shadow over their identities. But while Alluka found Nanika and was cast out for being dangerously different, Kalluto doesn't even get that kind of attention. They can't become the next heir, they don't have the seniority to manipulate, lovingly guide Killua. They don't have a unique role to fill beyond simply helping the family. And as the youngest of 5 children, I think the impact that has had on their psyche is already visible. Their tendency to torture their targets at the cost of efficiency could be viewed as an outlet for this frustration, but it cuts further than that. Compared to Miluki, whose long history of not leaving the house proves that he doesn't feel pressured to contribute to the business, Kalluto has ambition. Kalluto wants to matter, but their struggle manifests in how they attempt to attain that worth. Admiration and jealousy. Between the family's idolization of Killua and demonization of Alluka, I think Kalluto may have developed a conflicting respect for both Killua and Alluka. Killua is the family's chosen one, so naturally, Kalluto wants to be close to this important figure. Conversely, Alluka is seen as a threat to the family, but negative attention is still better than the nothingness Kalluto receives. Plus, she has Killua's affection, so in a way, she gets to fulfill both of Kalluto's desires, hence the jealousy. Perhaps this is why they started mimicking Alluka's more feminine presentation. They might believe that Killua favors Alluka for being a younger sister, or that Alluka is so carefully monitored because of her non-conforming gender. The obvious reason this hasn't seemed to produce results, however, is that Alluka's expression is true to herself. She doesn't act how she does for attention, she does it because that's who she genuinely is. That's not to say that Kalluto's identity is invalid just because they took after Alluka, though. They continue to dress as they do even in the succession arc, so I'm not expecting there to be a moment when they suddenly realize that they're a typical boy and so they should dress like one. You've probably noticed that I refuse to use gendered pronouns when talking about Kalluto, and that's because I personally read them as X-gender, which is basically the Japanese equivalent of non-binary, neither male or female. That scene in Chimera Ant where Kalluto is completely unfazed by being called a girl, yet they don't offer the typical "I'm actually a guy" correction, just feels neutral to me. Togashi might prove me wrong in the future, but even if Kalluto stays true to their assigned male at birth origins, Femboy writes, "It's not an obsession, I just really appreciate the aesthetic." But enough about gender, let's get back to the plot. The only thing we've learned directly from Kalluto is that they want to retrieve Killua, but it's uncertain as to why. Is it for personal reasons, perhaps the adoration I mentioned earlier, or is it something else? Kalluto just wants to be recognized by their own family, and I think that's where the connection to their mother comes in. The only real way to please her is to conform to what a Zoldyck should be. But Kalluto was never put in a position to be the ideal Zoldyck. The most they can do in their current role is cater to their mother and strive to rein in Killua so he can become the perfect assassin. But even then, Kalluto won't be number one. They'll at best play second fiddle to Killua, and that's if they can remove Alluka from the picture. But is that what Kalluto wants? Will Kalluto's jealousy be satisfied if Alluka is gone? Or does Kalluto deep down want respect from Alluka as well? She's as much Kalluto's older sibling as Killua is, and unlike Miluki and Illumi, who are probably too self-absorbed to care, I feel like Alluka would be the most accepting of all the Zoldicks. To tie all these observations together, Kalluto's place within the ideal Zoldyck family will always put them in Killua's shadow. But if Kalluto sought catharsis with Killua and Alluka, they could freely shape their own future. At the same time, however, if Kalluto were to cast off the Zoldicks, what would they have left? After spending their life to this point dependent on others, they'd have to start over. I'm a sucker for happy endings personally, so I'd like to see Kalluto's genderbender adventures with big sister Alluka. It just sounds wholesome and cute and uplifting. But knowing Togashi, this could just as easily end in tragedy. Either way, I feel like there's a confrontation between Kalluto, Killua, and or Alluka coming at some point. But if Kalluto is ever going to reach that crossroads, they need a catalyst to broaden their mindset. And that brings the discussion back to where we started. The Phantom Troupe's bonds run deeper than blood, and conformity ain't a part of their core principles. They may prioritize the good of the collective, but unlike the Zoldicks, they don't do so in a way that quashes the self. Pakunoda could have let Chrollo die to avoid jeopardizing the spider, but that's not what she wanted, instead choosing to sacrifice herself while saving Chrollo. Both scenarios included a single death, but Pakunoda chose the solution that best served her desires, not Chrollo's. The latter would have readily given his own life despite being the group's leader, but that outcome was not a shared preference, nor one that Chrollo forced onto his peers. On a similar note, when Phaeton is fighting Zazan, Kalluto assumes that the rest of the troupe should help, and expresses confusion when the others reject that idea. Kalluto has spent their life up to this point serving someone else, whether that be Killua, their mother, or just the general idea of what a Zoldyck should be. Kalluto doesn't understand what it means to be an individual, which is why they see the troupe's behavior as weird. Yet that very individuality is what they desire. It's a contradiction. But given the twisted practices of the Zoldicks, that's not a surprise. Illumi and Miluki have been irreparably damaged by this system. Killua and Alluka have seemingly overcome the trauma of their upbringing, but not without scars. The question that remains is, on which side will Kalluto fall? This one definitely strays more into theories and fanfiction than my usual projects, but I had fun making it. Kalluto is my everything, and I can't wait to learn more about them as the manga continues. When the manga continues. If the manga continues? In the meantime, follow me on Twitter if you want to see a bunch of cute Hunter x Hunter art retweets on your timeline. These artists give me life, and they deserve nothing but joy, so follow them as well. I'll catch you in a few days for more Togashi month.